Welcome to Meet Your Mentor. I'm Jack Scott, your host and the Chief Operations Officer of the Mentor Project. For these next few minutes, I will be interviewing one of our world-class mentors. As you listen, you will gain insights into their individual lives as they share their personal journeys of their successes and failures. We will discuss some of the best and worst career advice they have ever received, and I will have them describe in their own words what it means to be a mentor. So without further ado, let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Meet Your Mentor, where I have the opportunity to interview one of our amazing mentors. But before I bring my guest on the show today, I want to give you a little bit more background on the guest. So today I have the pleasure of interviewing Kartik Subramanian, the founder and the CEO of Dynamics Inc., a New York-based firm that provides engineering and technology solutions to biotechnology industries within US and Canada. Kartik has a really unique career in that he's an engineer by training with over 20 years of experience in the design and operation of FDA-regulated drug manufacturing factories. He has worked in Canada, US, Europe, and Asia in both a technical and a leadership role. His current mission in life is to leverage Dynamics to change the build and the design of current drug manufacturing facilities to produce safer and higher quality medicine. Outside of work, his interests are equally inclusive to include giving back to the community, practicing yoga, and spending quality time with his two boys and an amazing family. I am so excited to have Kartik on the show today. Let's go ahead and bring him on. Kartik, we briefly talked before we even hit record on the show today, and I am just so excited to dive into some of these questions with you. Wealth of knowledge. Please welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So it's pretty cold in New York, I'm guessing.
We got snow for a white Christmas.
I love that. So outside of the intro and the bio that I just shared with our guests and listeners right now, in a few words, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, your career, maybe something we wouldn't find on your LinkedIn or on your resume that we might not know about you?
Sure. First of all, it's great to be here. I studied engineering at the University of Waterloo, and what's maybe interesting about that is I come from a long lineage of non-scientific, non-engineering people, from my parents to my grandparents. So this was a little bit of groundbreaking for me, especially being from an Indian background. You're kind of expected to be math, science, and engineering. And I think early on I had the opportunity to study engineering, get to learn it. I didn't really have any predisposed ideas of what it is. And I've made a life, out of an engineering profession. Early in my career, I held engineering roles and technical roles, but it also has fit into, I like working with people, and the blend of having a technical background with the ability to interface and work and understand people and learn from has been, a lovely journey.
So when did you realize that you wanted to be in this field? Was this something that you just knew that you wanted to do? Was it because of your background within culture? Or did you have a passion when you were in middle school and high school to go into this type of field?
Yeah, so I think that, in our younger days, the world really is the universe. There's so many different ways to, want to live our lives. And I had a passion for music. I had a passion to read, and engineering on its own didn't really have much meaning to me. But I gravitated to fixing things, mainly because I had broken them. And those sort of insights and those that was a comfortable space for me. So, life sort of made its way organically to where I thought, hey, I could study a little bit more about this. And it led me to engineering.
I love that. So you're in engineering. What would you say in your field and where you're at and what you've experienced? What is the most rewarding thing that you experience within your field, either as of present or something in the past that you've experienced that it's just it helps you wake up every day? do what you do?
Sure. I think the more I work in this space and the more I work in engineering, I find that I feel wonder with how the ability to understand and simply describe how things work. So the deeper and deeper and deeper we get into a subject, we're able to simplify it. So I find that wonderful. Specifically, I'm in the space of engineering and biotechnology. Engineering is about kind of what we think is the more rudimentary things like math and science and first principles and thermodynamics and things like that. And biotechnology is making medicine using living things. It's a phenomena that I still can't comprehend after 25 years in the field. There's just so much that it offers. And if you combine engineering and biotech together, it's a way to provide practical solutions with cool new technology in the pursuit of saving lives.
That is well stated. That is well stated. So you, in your career field, you had to have experienced being a mentor, being a mentee throughout your career. I noticed that being in cybersecurity myself, there's a lot of mentors because you enter such a technical field like you're in, there's going to be individuals that are going to know more, and you're going to need those mentors in your life. And you are taking some of your experiences, and we are very fortunate to have you as a mentor with us at the Mentor Project to bring your experiences over and to teach the children that we work with around the world. So what I'd like to know from your own words, Kartik, is what does it mean to be a mentor and to work with and teach these children at the Mentor Project?
Thank you. I think earlier on in our lives, in my life, it was about me, and it was about acquiring, and it was about conquering, and it was about the experience that I had with the environment. And I am a believer that, I'm a child of the universe, and that reflection leads to a desire, a yearning to want to give back. I read a book called Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts, an Australian writer. And there's a line in it that says, every heartbeat is a universe of possibilities. And that rings so true when it comes to children and their open mind, and to be able to contribute, when I'm healthy and use the knowledge that I've been fortunate enough to gain to maybe provide a path or to share my knowledge to their success, or maybe towards a step in their happiness, would just be amazing and fulfilling.
That is so beautiful. I see you as a mentor already, and I'm so excited to have you on our team to work with the children. If you could, I'm going to give you a little bit of a challenging question here, because you have said a lot of things on the way that you see how a mentor should be and how they should interact and engage within the community and others. Can you summarize in one word what a mentor means to you and why you pick that one particular word?
The word that comes to mind is hope. And I'll describe it in the sense that being fortunate enough to have had mentors along the way, from coaches in high school to teachers to family friends. It's like having a loving and affectionate grandparent as a teacher. So they're vested, but they're not invested. They are voluntarily responsible to share their wisdom, but they're not accountable for your outcome. And I think that relieves a little bit of the pressure and offers a more pure relationship to share that.
Do you believe that being a mentor and having a mentee, that it is a two-way relationship, you're learning from the mentee and of course the mentee is learning from the mentor?
I think it's certainly a two-way relationship. In my experience, if we take, some of us who may be, less fortunate, to those who are more fortunate, to those who, consider themselves successful, having a mentor is firstly a connection. So it takes two. And it also is a alternate current that can sweep us in what we, by design in the mentoring world, to, I hope, with my involvement, a good place, a better place for somebody who you work with.
And I want to touch on something that you said earlier about the mentor in the responsibility. I think that was the word that you used, is the mentor is not responsible for your outcome. Is that correct? I think that's what you had mentioned earlier. And what I find interesting is that you're absolutely correct on that. And a lot of times the mentees and the mentors the mentees go into the relationship expecting the mentor to do all of the guidance, all of the teaching, but really a lot of the work is done by that mentee. And that mentor is simply there to guide and just give advice when necessary to allow them to figure out their own course because that's their own journey. Do you agree with that?
I think I largely agree with that. I think to be considered a good teacher, somebody must learn something. So there's that shared responsibility. It's certainly a mentor's responsibility to volunteer and to help and to teach, but they're not necessarily accountable in the way a parent or a formal teacher or a boss might be for an outcome. And I think that's where there's an opportunity to foster an even tighter bond.
Accountable. That was the word. Yep. If you were sitting with a mentor right now, or a mentee, and they were asking you questions about your career field and unsure of the path that they wanted to take, maybe they're transitioning from high school and they're going into college in the next term. Could you provide any insight to them that may help them on that journey of deciding if maybe they want to move into engineering, and what would that insight be?
Sure. I think the world as we know it, technology tends to evolve exponentially, as we hear. So the more we discover, the more we discover, and the more we discover. So it tends to shorten time. It tends to eliminate space. It tends to automate our function as humans and as society. It tends to sometimes limit thought, if not stagnate it. So in this kind of movement towards, a highly automated, low code, no code, black box type society, I feel it's promising. It breeds creativity and opportunity, but it's very important to know what's in the black box, and to understand what's in the black box at the pace that we're going takes the understanding and interest and inquiry into multiple fields. So in biotech, for example, one could be an engineer, or one could have been a scientist, or one could be a doctor, or one could have been a computing expert. Today's world it's all come together. The engineer is expected to understand molecular biology. The scientist who understood molecular biology or biochemistry is expected to understand high throughput computing. So the fields are coming together. So my kind of thought would be, learn to master the technical and multiple fields so we can speak the language of technology to apply it tomorrow. That's on the inside of the box. And outside, equally, learn about people. Learn emotional intelligence, human sigma, learn how to interact with people. The more we understand people, maybe the more we can relate to the robots of tomorrow.
Well said. Oh my gosh. So what are your thoughts on where AI and machine learning is going? Do you believe that it is the future of where we're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I
know that's a deep question to ask.
I don't consider myself an expert in that, but I think it's like the ubiquitous internet. There's no way to avoid it, because the idea of intelligence is it breeds intelligence and it gets faster and faster. Our difficult task, like it is with all of technology, is to use it wisely. Mm-hmm. And sometimes economics has a way of filtering that out for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Karthik, what in your career, can you think of a time that you received bad advice, bad career advice, and what was that advice and how did it impact you? Did it, did you learn from it? Did you see it as bad advice when you received it at the time, or did you listen to it and you heeded the advice and then realized later on, no, this was actually pretty bad advice? Can you share a story with us?
Sure. This may sound odd coming from somebody who, operates a business and has a say in how business functions, but probably the not so greatest advice I've received in my career is the idea of it's strictly business. Business, I have learned, is a complex, interwoven chain of ideas and the people who bring it alive. So we make decisions and conduct our way with people in mind, with ideas in mind, with customers in mind, to a point where it isn't just strictly business. Secondly, the idea and mentality of strictly business may provide a pathway to reduce the way we think in terms of our values and our ethics and the way we conduct ourselves in terms of human emotion, because it's strictly business. Actually, it's not. It's our ideas that are brought upon by humans and by the people around us. So not the greatest advice I received, but took me a long time to learn that.
I love that. Being a business owner and entrepreneur, I don't know how many times I've heard that. It's business. Don't take it personal. I'd like to know the opposite of that question, which is, what is the best advice you've received? If it was career advice or if it wasn't career advice, what did you do with that advice and how did it impact you?
Sure. That one seems a little easier. This one came from my mother, and of course, there's no way I was heeding it in my younger days. Mm-hmm. Something like this, which is how you do anything is how you do everything. And it had its role when we were younger, when it came to doing chores. While they might not have been a lot of them, whatever was done, the idea was to do it right and do it well. Funnily, in my professional life, it has converted to wanting to make sure, especially in the field of biotechnology and in engineering, where, a needle that goes into a baby's arm is sterile. You can reach for it on a shelf and you can stick it in somebody's arm and it's going to be safe. It's going to have the right product with the right concentration, with the right materials. So the idea of being thorough, being complete, being accurate, being error-free as a way of living, at least what we strive for, has emerged from that to where, the company itself has developed that including with all our people as kind of a core value. There's not much variability when it comes to us or our company, or so we'd like to think, but definitely something we'd like to strive for.
Well said. You make me think of a quote or saying that, my military background, and we would have these just crazy tasks that we would have to do. And many times, if you just did it right the first time, you wouldn't have to do it again. And that's something that always stuck with me, is do it right the first time and you won't have to do it again, possibly the second or third time. And that leads me into the last question that I wanted to ask you. Can you share with us a quote that has maybe currently impacted you, or maybe something that you heard when you were younger that you've carried with you throughout your life? And in what way has that impacted you?
Sure. It's an exciting one. The quote is, if you want something you don't have, be prepared to do something you've never done.
I love it.
Yeah. And it has so many dimensions to offer us, so many messages in that quote. One is it's, we're at this cliff and we can fly, and it's inspirational and motivational. But underneath that, I feel it's also supportive. And there's a safety net in that quote, which says that, hey, if you want it, you have to do something you haven't done, so you're ready for it. So
God, I love that. I actually told a mentee that about 4 weeks ago. It's beautiful. So we are at our time, but before we hop off, I know that our listeners are going to want to reach out to you. So can you provide them with the best way to contact you, if that's an email address or your LinkedIn?
Sure, Jackson. Yeah, I would be happy for that. And I'm reachable by LinkedIn, or I'm happy to share my email, which is here on the screen.
Awesome, Kartik. So this has been absolutely amazing. Please reach out to Kartik if you has any questions. Catch him on LinkedIn. His last name, Subramanian, is spelled Subramanian. You can find him there, and you can also find him on our Mentor Project website as well. So Kartik, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much again for coming in today.
Thank you, Jax. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you to all our listeners and sponsors who have made this podcast possible. You can check out all our content by going to our website at mentorproject.org. We'd love for you to contact us to get more involved. See you next week when we talk with another one of our amazing mentors.